been several years since I made a video about making kidney boxes, and since I made the video about 4 years ago, I've changed the process a little bit to streamline it somewhat. And I've also come up with more dimensions that help me get the proportions of the box when it's done a little bit more pleasing to the eye. So I thought I would make a new video on how to make a kidney box that captures that updated information. So here's a kidney box. This one's from Osage Orange. You can see the kidney shape of the thing. I hope that shows here in the video. And all on the inside, a little bit of a pilot in the lid that holds the lid on, keeps the lid centered. And so this one is a pretty one. So I like to have the dimensions maybe a little thinner in the top than this one. This one has a top that's about 5/8 of an inch, and I prefer about 1/2 an inch or so, maybe 3/8. And I've started making the interior or the walls of the box a little bit thinner. That can be done after the box has been hollowed out, so that's no big deal. But this is a typical kidney box. So when you're trying to get an object of this size out of a wood scrap, here I have a piece of black walnut branch fell out of the tree 3 years ago or so, and so I cut out the big pieces and brought them inside. It's been drying for several years, so it should be dry enough to make into a box now. So I have to cut this, and I will the boxes will be oriented from the wood more or less in this direction. So I should be able to get, I'm hoping, 4 boxes out of this, because there's enough thickness there, so that I should be able to get one there and one there, and then times 2, so that's a total of 4 boxes is what I'm hoping for. You can see as this dried, even though it was sealed with anchor seal, there was some checking in the wood, and that checking will result in some of the wood not being as usable. The fewer cracks there are in the wood when you make the box, the less work you have to do to fill those cracks. So I'd like to start with wood that's not too full of cracks. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to rip this log down the middle, and then I'll start laying out the box. Okay, so now we have ripped the scrap of wood, the log, in half. So there's the mid seam. As you can see, it was cut like that. So we're going to make the kidney boxes from these 2 pieces, and I cut this to be 2.5 inches thick, more or less, because that's the amount of space I need when you consider the sanding and all that other junk that's going to go on to make the kidney boxes. So the kidney boxes are going to be coming out of here something like this, and the lid will be in this top half, and the base will be in this bottom half. So now I lay out where the kidney boxes will be placed in these scraps, and go from there. So if you look at these scraps, you can see there's some end checking. There's some checking right there, and there's a big check over here, crack, and you don't want those to be in the middle of the box. That would look very unsightly, so we want to avoid that if we can. So we would certainly avoid it if we went all the way out to there, but we know this crack gets narrower and thinner out that way. It probably goes more toward the outside and less toward the inside as you go to the middle. So I think I can put a box staying away from this check How are we doing there? Yeah, it shows. I can stay away from this check if I locate this end over here, something like that. So I'll go in a little bit, over quite a bit, and we'll just go ahead and put one of them right there. So you can see one box is going to come from there, and you notice I included a little bit of bark here. We'll see if we use that bark when we make the box. We'll know better after we do the splitting. And then a second box. This should be pretty good wood, and you have this like knotty feature over here, which probably will push some interesting figure into the wood. So I'll locate this one right there, like that. And then one more. Again, from this end we have a check coming in right there, so we want to stay as far this way as we can to stay away from this check right here. So I'll push it right to there, and that should be pretty good too. Let's try that. Okay, so it looks like I can get three boxes on this chunk. So I'll draw the split lines where I'll be splitting this. When I make my next cuts, this will help figure out where the sound wood is, and these are just kind of preliminary locations for these boxes. We'll move it based on what we see when we make these additional cuts. Okay, now that we've cut out the boxes, I would like to measure the moisture content in the wood to see how we're doing, because this was like a 2023 piece of wood, and it's been in the basement for 2.5 years, which is usually enough to dry it. But let's see what the moisture content meter says. We'd like for this to be around 14 or so, or less. And it reads 11, and this one reads 11.7, and this one reads 11.8. And if we compare a piece that's been in the basement and sliced thin and drying for a long time, we see that reads about 7. So although this is dry enough that we could make these boxes, we'll have a better result if we wait a little longer and let them dry a little more. So that's what I'm going to do. These would have been in the low 30s when the wood first came into the house to dry. So it's well over halfway, 2/3 of the way dry, but if these sit like this for another week or two, it won't hurt a bit, and that's what I'm going to do. Let's check this blank that was cut out during summer, so about 6 months ago. It's been sitting around, and it says 5. Okay. so this piece was cut 6 months ago and prepared measures about 6. This piece that was from a log that I carved up to make kidney boxes yesterday measures about 10 or 12. I have elected to let this piece sit for another 4 or 5 months to get a little drier. So I'm going to put this on the shelf to dry further, and I'll show the rest of the kidney box making with one that I prepared last summer that is fully dry and should be a little bit more stable so that we'll get a better box out of it. Okay, this figure shows the dimensions that I use when I make kidney boxes. I haven't always stuck to these dimensions, but I found that if I make it these dimensions, I get the best aesthetics for the thickness of the lid and the thickness of the body. It works well with how deep I can plunge the interior with my router bits and tooling, so that is what I use. So when I rough it out, I start with a piece that's 2 1/4 inches in thickness, more or less, and when I finish it, I end up with the body being 1 5/8 inches tall and the lid being 3/8 of an inch tall, sometimes a little less. I'll go down to a little under that, maybe 5/16 or so. Thick for the lid looks good too. So those are the kind of the dimensions I'm shooting for. So I take a blank like the ones I cut yesterday, and I cut them to do that. So let's look at what I did last summer with this. So this is going to be the body, and presently this body is 1 3/4 inches deep, a little over 1 3/4 inches. So I've got a little more than the 1 5/8 inches that I need for a finished dimension, so that's good. And the lid piece is 1/2 inch, so that's more than the 3/8 I need. So I've got more material here than I need, so I can definitely finish some of that off, sand some of that off. Now I don't want to take off, if I take off material, I'll take it off the bottom of this guy and this guy over here. So this is going to be the lid. So this is going to be the center, the base. I lay the template on there, draw the outline, okay, so that's going to go together like that. The interior is going to fit on here like this. So this is the most important guy of all, because the interior is actually going to be built to line up. It's going to be routed out to line up with this line I'm about to draw. So before I draw it, I check it, I make sure that I've got adequate thickness here for the walls of the box, and I do. This kind of shows the exterior contour, more or less. There's plenty of good material around it. There's no cracks in this. This is going to be a piece of cake. Okay, so you can sort of see that pencil line on there, I hope. And come in a little closer. And that inner line is what I'll be making this box to. Now I'm hoping for 1 5/8 inches on this thing. So let's mark how much we have to take off the bottom. So I take my marking gauge, set it for 1 5/8 inches. So I just marked down from where the joint will be here. Okay, good enough. And this guy's going to be 5/8-ish. Okay, so now we have removed the bulk of the waste from the lower half of the kidney box. We've controlled the depth of this waste removal so that we leave about 1/8 of an inch of material at the bottom of the box, which is plenty. So next we set up to route the interior of the box. So now I'll be clamping this into my jig, which is designed to mimic the interior of the box, which is kind of like that. And I'll use a pattern router to do that. It's a nice little way of doing it. It looks good just like that. Double check, see how that aligns. To get it centered a little better, we'll so we tighten it down. Okay, so now we have routed the cavity and the lid. Okay, the lid goes on like this. We've got this great grain match for the lid. But we don't want the lid to slide around. The lid needs a pilot to hold it in position. And so we will glue on a pilot to the underside of the lid so that when the lid is on, it doesn't slide around. It stays centered on the box. So the next step is to make the pilot. And I just happen to have this nice little piece of wood right here, which I'll use to make the pilot. It's about 1/8 of an inch thick. It's a little bit tapered, but that won't matter. So we'll just go to the thicker side of this piece, and we want to put it so that the side of this that is flattest, this side's been sanded, so we'll use this side to glue to the underside of the lid, which has also been sanded. We won't be too concerned about the grain match there, so just getting out a nice thick piece that is smooth, doesn't have any bark. That's what we're after. So we trace this outline of the cavity interior on that surface that's going to get glued to the lid. So I'll cut this out on the bandsaw, and then I'll sand that profile with the profile sander. Then I'll carefully fit the piece. It'll be a little oversized. I'll carefully fit it so it just pilots inside this guy. And we'll be ready to glue that on. Okay, so now we have made the pilot, which fits quite exactly inside the cavity. And now we want to glue the pilot onto the lid. So the lid goes like this. So the pilot goes on the underside of the lid like that. So how do we get the pilot placed so that when this lid goes down, this top and the sides of this thing align? That gives you a really good grain match between the lid and the body, to where, except for the seam of where it's split, it looks like one piece of wood, which is high level stuff. So what I do is I put the pilot into the box, and then I slap the lid on, and then I bang it down. And then I lift it up, and there's the pilot left where it kind of belongs, and that should do the trick. Put it on, turn it over, give it a bang or two. Lift it off very carefully and vertically, and that tells you where that wants to go. So then I mark this perimeter lightly with pencil. There it is right here. And the pilot goes down like this. And we check the fit. Make sure that that aligns like it's supposed to. Yep, looks pretty good. Yep, that looks good. Then we clamp this in place. Our pencil line was reasonably accurate. So now I clamp this. Typically I use 3 clamps. Now when you clamp this, this wants to drift a little bit. So I usually clamp this and then I take it off. So we'll double check, make sure the fit is still good. Okay, that's good. Last time. So that has to dry an hour, and then it'll be good to go. Okay, so we have shaped the box overall. It has the good outside profile. I've thinned the wall to a pleasing thickness of the cavity, so that looks good. The pilot is nice and tight. It's a real good fit. That's great. So now it's time to do the final thicknessing of the lid. The lid is a little thicker than I like, so I'm going to take off about a generous 1/16 of an inch from the lid, and that will improve the aesthetics of how this looks after it's shaped. So I'll do that next, and then I'll sand the contours on the lid so that it's nicely rounded. Put a little bit of a round over on the base, and then I'll start sanding for improper finish. So let's do that. Thickness the lid, round it over, and then sand for finish. Okay, the box has been sanded now to 220. It's nice and smooth. It's ready for the first coat of finish, and then it can start the finish process. So it has a great pilot fit, lid knit just good, the grain aligns quite well. It should be very pretty, so let's see how it looks when it was the first coat of finish, which is a sealer coat. Really looks nice. There's the bottom. Just a little bit of chatoyance there. So there's the kidney box. The first coat of finish in the UV cooker, getting zapped to harden the finish. Take about 30 minutes, and then we'll take a look at it. Okay, so here's the box after the first coat of finish has been applied and cured. What you can see, if you look at it, is you can see that in the end grain areas, the finish has soaked in, but it hasn't left a sheen on the outside. It's basically wicked into the box. So with a couple more coats of finish, that will have everything well saturated and a nice continuous surface. So at this point, I'll be doing lots more sanding with fine grit paper and applying finish to this thing till it's all shiny and nice.